We spend some people up to 80% of their time doing administrative work. And with true Agentic AI, we're able to kind of flip that script.
Where we really see AI helping is getting AI in front of the production teams so that as the story changes, they themselves can kind of see that data from the network.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tech Unscripted. Today, we're going to talk about the future of our workplaces in the sports industry and also in higher education, but might I add, higher education where one of the most iconic basketball players of all time went to school, Patrick Ewing. So with that, I would love for you gentlemen to please introduce yourselves and let's dig in.
Yeah, great. I'm Douglas Little. I have the privilege of being the CIO at Georgetown University.
I'm Cliff Ryan. I'm the Vice President of Network Engineering for NBC Universal.
Right on. So you guys have seen quite a lot in your organizations. A little bit different, the organizations that you run, but also a lot of outcomes that you have to drive, right? So before we get into the more serious conversation, let's do a quick rapid fire warm up. What's the one technology buzzword that you think is actually worth the hype?
I think AI with respect to not only prompt, like conversational troubleshooting, but true agentic AI and how it can operationally up the game.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that agentic AI is really where the key is. I think at Georgetown, we really struggle. We have lean resources.
Yes.
There's never enough people to get the work done. And, we spend sometimes some people up to 80% of their time doing administrative work, right?
Yeah.
And with true agentic AI, we're able to kind of flip that script and we're able to switch and do 20% sort of administrative work and really utilize the technology to free up 80% of the time to do what's most important, which is then connecting with members of the community, connecting with each other around those common points of passion. That's what drives universities and organizations, forward. It's not waking up in the morning and being like, great, I've got 80% of my day in administrative tasks, right? Like no one gets out of bed excited to do that.
Super
right?
fired up about that.
Yeah. So I think we kind of cheated and both said the same thing, but I think there's real potential in that agentic AI, as long as it's used responsibly and in the right way.
Agreed. So we're talking about administrative things, they're important, but not as important. What's the one thing let's go all the way to the other end of the spectrum? What's the one thing that absolutely cannot fail in your environment? The critical stuff.
Yeah, for us, live sports demands temporary but massive scale, and it's got a hard timestamp. At 12:05 Eastern time, the ball's getting kicked.
Yeah.
You have to deliver not only in front of the camera, but all the ancillary infrastructure behind it has to perform.
100%.
And for us, really the lifeblood of our campuses is our network, right? So before it was sort of our kind of wireless network was this other thing. And then we had hardwired phones, we had other sort of kind of systems, we had, plugged in landlines. But what we've got now is everything at our university runs off of that wireless network, our phones, our security cameras. So there's so much life and safety in addition to education and learning, in addition just to being sort of a experience factor for our students. Right?
Yes.
In this competitive higher education environment, they want to go places that have sort of that cutting edge technology that allows them to take advantage of AI, allows them to take advantage of 3D and holographic sim labs, things like that. So really the network used to be sort of a system, but now we really view it as the platform, and it's the platform that we're then building up off of. So I would say that's probably what's central to our business and touches all life and aspects of our students, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, even in the sports environment, even today we say the network is the production hub. Yeah. Because without it, the entire distributed infrastructure, you can't do a show without the network. So it's really the hub.
It's funny. Not long ago, speaking of higher ed, I was speaking at the University of Texas and Become School of Business. And I was at a marketing summit. I was sandwiched in between the CMO of Starbucks and the CMO of Dr. Pepper. And I get on stage and I'm like, how many of you know what Cisco does? Right? And a couple of their students are engineering undergrads. So they're like, oh, we do. And then the rest of them are kind of scratching their heads. And I was like, this internet thing? I was like, 80% of the world's internet traffic or roughly still runs across Cisco globally. And we protect that too. And all of a sudden the light bulbs are going off, right? And they're like, oh, we get it. And I'm like, that text you sent last night that you never want your mother to see? that actually is running probably across Cisco somewhere. Or when you're in the University of Texas football stadium and you know, 100,000 fans are trying to send a text, like, that's us. And they're like, oh, your fan experience. And the, you know, so it's interesting we say student experience, fan experience, and what you guys do too. You can't have the network go down. You just can't.
But that what you just described, I think, is what we all want, right? Like we don't want them to know what's running the network, right? We want it just to be in the background working, right? And providing everything they need, and them not knowing, right? You know, what Cisco does or what you know, the network is built upon, because we want it to just be so seamless and smooth. They don't even have to think about it, right?
And that's what we want too, by the way. But we also, at some point, want Gen Z, millennials, and even Gen Alpha to know that what's helping run the critical infrastructure that they rely on every day is actually Cisco. So if you can instantly automate one part of your day tomorrow with AI, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be work related. Like, what would be something you'd automate with AI?
Yeah, for me, you know, with the work we do with sports, you know, we're really integrated with production teams because, you know, the story follows the athletes. And when that story changes, that means the cameras and the data needed changes. And so where we really see AI helping is getting AI in front of the production teams so that as the story changes, they themselves can kind of see that data from the network. How might that impact their event? If you know, if there's a story that was going to be in the venue is now in a remote venue, what is the change in infrastructure that's needed so that it's not, you know, there's so many events, we don't have really room for, oh, we don't have the bandwidth, oh, we don't have that equipment. We can move that knowledge up the chain to production. It helps everyone.
You think about like Olympics, all the different venues and different weather conditions and all the things. Like I had the privilege of, since we sponsored the Olympics, being in Paris and watching how this all unfolded in all the infrastructure there, and some of it, you know, very old that they had to modernize, and then some that was built brand new for the Olympics. You guys are in the midst of all of that, right? It's
exactly right.
It's a use case that's sort of Jurassic sized.
Yeah, it's about real-time data about the changes that are going on, so that at the end of the day, the network is invisible, right? It just.
So with that, let me build on that. So Georgetown is building an AI-ready campus foundation with one of the largest Wi-Fi 7 deployments in higher education, which is bonkers. How much of this conversation is really about infrastructure readiness?
Yeah, I think I'm really reframing it to that experience, right? And so some of it is infrastructure readiness. Obviously, we had some buildings, we had some switches, we had some backbone. It's part of this refresh that we need to do. But what we really want to do is provide that experience to where a student can be in one of the just off-campus housing, right? Start something on their mobile tablet, walk across the main lawn, walk into a classroom building, stop and get a coffee, go in and start their class without ever losing any connectivity, right? To where it's very smoothly handed off from point to point to point. And so they're able to do things on the go, on the move, that, you know, we previously struggled with, right? As folks move between zones, move between access points. I think that's really what that technology, Wi-Fi 7, but also the AI that's built sort of into Cisco systems that help reroute, to help deal with that traffic. It's what our students expect, right? Like they don't want to, you know, have their connection go up and down. They don't want, you know, that pausing and that glitching as they're moving from place to place, or even, you know, in the residence halls, right? So think about our residence halls were built, you know, decades ago when someone might have a computer, right? You know what I mean? Like, and now they're each bringing like 8 to 10 devices with them, right? And all those devices are cross-talking. It's extremely complex. So we were talking earlier and you said, you know, do you do anything with like sports arenas? And I said no, but I really should have said yes, because every residence hall is like a sports arena, right? You know, a density of fans that don't behave predictably, right? And move from like area to area do, you know, sort of all these wacky things. And they don't know how complex it is, right?
Right.
Or what's on the back end. They just know it needs to work. And so we are doing some infrastructure upgrades, but really it all comes down to what that end user experience is like. And I think that's where we and other universities can really get a big competitive edge, is if you have the latest technology that gives that experience, it doesn't slow students down or provides friction for faculty and staff to do their day-to-day work, then that's really what really empowers our organizations going forward.
Right on. And I know you all are on the cutting edge of that, being one of the premier institutions in the country. Okay, you've worked across the Olympics, back to this, Super Bowl and World Cup.
Small events.
I mean,
just a little
No pressure.
tiny. What operational problems become solvable with AI?
It's the idea of operational insight for a larger user base.
Yeah.
Like today, there's an issue, we might have production teams calling network engineers to kind of understand that, is there an issue that could be impacting our video that's the network? You start opening that up with prompts and kind of like a Canvas AI scenario. Now you have production teams able to really understand themselves. And as they know something might change, how might this impact? And is this a problem?
Right.
And they can start doing that work themselves.
It's really a democratization, right,
Exactly
of
right.
the network,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
To where you can have people who might not have the depth of skills, but need that outcome, right? And allow them to interact with the network without having to have a choke point, right? Of the right network engineer, then the right member of the networking team. That's not going to replace those team members, right? But provide sort of a smoother, quicker.
For us, it's kind of like the future past infrastructure as code. I think so many of us had this DevOps environment in the last couple of years, and that was to really upskill the engineer. Now it's to upskill almost like the entire company.
It's, a few years ago was the Women's World Cup, and I say a few, several. We had an opportunity to get involved sort of last minute in Australia and New Zealand and become a partner there. And so we had to set up the networking across all the stadiums in New Zealand and Australia within 21 days. So we took, since it was Women's World Cup, we took a team of all female engineers that were actually educated at the Cisco Networking Academy.
Oh, that's impressive.
And they went and did it in under 21 days. And I have to say the broadcasting was fairly flawless. Like we were watching from around the globe, and I was so impressed with what they could do. But it begs the question, if we had agentic capability to help augment that, 21 days wouldn't seem as perilous as it did at that time. And yet these women did this Herculean feat. But think about what they could do with agentic side by side with them today doing the same job. So it's pretty fascinating.
And I think what's fascinating to me is if they had that agentic AI, it wouldn't have replaced that team.
Right on.
Or those people.
No.
You still need people at the center of it, right?
Yes.
But that additional tool allows those people to live a better life, right?
Right on.
And accomplish more with less, right?
Right.
So that they can then move on to the next things, or maybe enjoy New Zealand and Australia for a little bit instead of working 24/7. So it's not replacing the heroes, right? They're still going to be the heroes. It's just giving those heroes a new, different tool in their tool belt to be able to accomplish great things.
It's augmenting their superpower.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally agree.
And giving them a little bit of their life back, which I think everybody could use. I think, this is totally digressing, but the one commodity that nobody has more of and can't figure out how to invent more of is time. Right? And what I've seen agentic do in our workforce is give time back for the meaningful things or the things outside of work, the meaningful things inside and outside of work, which I think is brilliant when utilized correctly, right?
I threaten this once every couple of weeks as CIO at Georgetown. I'm like, I'm shutting down email and we're going back to interoffice mail.
Oh, God.
I just remember like interoffice mail, right?
Yellow envelopes.
There's no envelopes, right? So I think we need a time in our lives where we just slow the heck down, right?
Right on.
And we write letters to each other, right? And then respond to those letters. I think our lives have gotten so complex at work, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure, at NBC and at Cisco, but like at Georgetown, I've got like 10 different databases that I have to interact with every day, right, to do my work.
Right.
And when this whole enterprise started, there weren't any databases. There was interoffice mail, and then there was one database, and then there was more and more and more. And people are fractured, right? Their attention is going in a bunch of different directions. They're working around the clock. And so I think what's really powerful is how can we utilize that agentic AI to bring order to the chaos, right?
Right on.
Which is what it does best. Unstructured data, right? Making it structured.
Yes.
And so we're a Gmail user, and so I don't know if you guys use Gmail in your personal life or your professional life, but when someone important emails me and I haven't done a good job in email back, it's like, hey, dummy, you've got, you need to respond to this email. It's been like 3 days. We can use Agentic AI to help us manage relationships in the same way.
That's right.
So, I usually meet with you once a quarter. It's now been 10 months. Like we can ping, my Agentic AI can tell me, hey, you really need to set up a meeting with Cliff. Do you want me to do that for you, right? Or do you want to reach out and take that action? And I think there could be a big psychological easing, right?
Yes.
If we can get this right to where I don't then have to start my day and say, okay, well, I've got to check all these 10 different places for what I need to do or what I need to focus on. I have suggestions waiting from me from an agent that starts to know me and starts to know my habits and can start to see my patterns.
Yes.
It really helps guide my work and focus on what's important, right? I think we do a lot of things day to day that aren't important, right? But there's things we think we have to do, right? So how can we get the agents to do those things for us while we focus on the important things?
I was literally with my team yesterday, and we were talking about all the things we have to get done for next year financial planning. And the hottest topic in the room was what we cannot do next year. And the prioritization of that amongst senior leaders who have great experience is still so hard because we want to do everything. And then it's like, you don't do everything well, right? And so having the help of Agentic to say, hey, looking at all these patterns and here's what I'd recommend. What a relief. So you touched about this earlier, Doug, when you said, hey, you have to serve, the campus moves with students, like it's literally everywhere. The definition of what a workplace is in both of your environments is so broad. It is not sitting in a conference room, right? I mean, yes, I'm sure that's part of it, but it's a very different. And we have customers like McLaren Racing who move their data center 24 times or 26 times a year to the most extreme climates on the planet. Their workplace is everywhere. Your workplace is everywhere. Your workplace is everywhere your students go. So with that in mind, I'd like to go, Cliff, to you first. Your teams operate across all these venues, countries, and temporary production environments. How do you create consistency across highly mobile operations?
Yeah, it's interesting. In 2024, we did about 380 remote events. And so far this year, and it's only June, we're up to 600.
Oh, wow.
So
wow.
It's
you need to take them back to inter-office mail. That's why.
That'll slow them down.
That's why you're doing so many events.
But, so you take that and the idea that, this distributed production environment, it was only 3-4 years ago where it was getting that remote production truck out of the venue, use the network to distribute it backwards. But I honestly see it changing. Maybe there's no production truck, but there's compute. Some of these next generation venues have compute, and we're going to want to use it. So with respect to the workplace, it's really just, you're involving the entire team. There is no more a campus engineer versus a backbone engineer. It's really about upskilling the whole team, so that they can deal with the field, deal with the back end compute, and really just work in unison. And honestly, from an AI perspective, it's that idea of, you have junior engineers, you have senior engineers, but giving them some technology beyond infrastructure as code to where they can ask questions and glean information. That's like the workplace of the future as we see it.
Right on. Doug, students and faculty now expect seamless experiences, as we discussed, everywhere on campus. How has hybrid learning reshaped your technology priorities?
Yeah, and I was talking to someone earlier, the sun never sets on Georgetown, right? So we have our two DC-based campuses. We have a campus in Qatar. We have a campus, Villa in Italy. We have a campus in Jakarta, Romania 1 in Greece, right? So we're all over the globe, and that's not counting where our students are studying abroad or where our faculty are doing some medical research in Africa, right? So what we have to try to do is to bring that Georgetown experience that they get on our traditional hilltop to all of those different areas. So for us, it's all about how can we simplify it and how can we create something that's not too complex for our teams to be able to manage, that gets them the information you were kind of talking about with production earlier, the information they need when they need it, right, based on that changing situation on the ground. So for us, it's, doubling down and having, and I think that's what one of the reasons why we're partners with Cisco is because it has a global reach, right? And so then we can put our Meraki switches and our systems and our access points in all of those global locations. And then we can also put Meraki cameras there, right? And so then when our VP of public safety is focused, right, on keeping our entire community safe, it's not just those people that are on that traditional Hilltop campus, right?
Yeah.
It's the people in Qatar they're undergoing a horrific situation there. And so, being able then for them just to log on, it's all in their Meraki dashboard, right?
Yes.
In public safety, just to be able to, at a glance, get sort of that literal picture, right, of what's going on across all our different campuses. That level of integration and simplification really makes a huge difference to that public safety staff that, again, is we're all under resourced in higher education. And so you've got to have things that are simple and easy, especially when it is something such important as life and safety.
Right on. Okay, let's pivot a little bit into digital resilience. Cliff, for you at NBC, you're supporting live global broadcasts, and we talked about the scope and scale of those, which is mind-numbing, some of the things that you do. Where millions upon millions of people are watching in real time. What does resilience actually mean operationally, and what role does automation play in maintaining uptime?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it comes down to just understanding the importance and doing the work, right? We have this redundant backbone, right? We stretch that into our major campuses from Universal City on the West Coast to 30 Rockefeller and do like this VXLAN with redundancy, so we can stretch connectivity with redundancy with, fast failover east to West Coast. So we build that so that we're ready, right? And then with respect to the events, it's the same idea, understanding what's needed. We test it under load, with real data, real video before we put things in shipping containers. So by the time we're deploying, everybody has a pretty high level of confidence that resiliency is going to be there.
Okay, I'm going to riff for a second, but have you ever had an issue where that didn't work?
Yeah, we have had issues where, we take circuit outages, pop outages, well beyond the scale of what we needed. And, part of that is just contingency. Then you're in the point where, like, what can you back off of? Almost like when you're on a boat and throwing stuff overboard to keep afloat. You just, you work in unison with production teams, understanding what you need to jettison, how you need to change the story.
And Doug, anything you want to add on the resilience side?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing Super Bowl level events or Cisco Live level events, but like 10,000 people came to our Hilltop to watch commencement exercises, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about that being a culmination, right, of 4 years, right? Probably for a lot of those, young students, probably the pinnacle of their life thus far, like graduating from college, right? And so it's got to be perfect, right? And you've got to be able to have the video broadcast up so grandma and grandpa who couldn't come to the Hilltop, right, can see their grandkids walk across stage. And that's how we sort of kind of start to build those relationships then after they leave our Hilltop, right? So this is like a big deal for higher education, a big deal for Georgetown, because it's a different chapter in what we hope is that lifelong relationship. So it's got to be perfect. It's got to work the way it's supposed to. And so similar sort of to what Cliff was talking about, we have, redundant layers, right? And so if one layer goes down, we've got a backup that we can put there. And our then major challenge is we have to do all of that in the middle of a group of historic buildings. So we can't just start bolting things here or there. And so the Cisco engineering team, that's where they're really invaluable to us. They're really embedded side by side into our team. My team's focused on kind of the meat and potatoes day to day. And our engineering team really helps, the Cisco engineering team really helps come in and helps us focus on the future, right? And helps us talk about how do we optimize, how do we have those redundant layers, how do we have those oh crap moments, what are we going to do, and what do we already have in place in our infrastructure that allows us to quickly pivot.
Yeah.
It's, hearing both of you talk about these moments that really matter. A few years back, I was interviewing the head of security for the NFL, and at a different Cisco Live a few years back, and we were talking about sport and how great it is, and the fan experience and all the things. And she said, and also life and death. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, there was a player that was on the field a few years back. I'm sure you remember, it's all over the news, that it had a heart event. If you go back and kind of freeze frame and you look around the stadium, so many people had their phones out and they were live streaming, trying to figure out what was wrong. Like everybody was texting, calling, and she said, if our network bandwidth had not been there, the doctors who were on the field could not have gotten the right advice at that time to have literally been working on this athlete and saving his life. And she was like, it matters. That resilience, that infrastructure actually matters in those times. And when it's at that kind of scale of like an NFL game or a playoff, like in like the Olympics, it doesn't matter if it's graduation where your child is walking across the stage at Georgetown. Those are the life moments that matter, all the way through to saving an athlete's life. In an extreme case, resiliency has to be there for the things that we need in this life, right? And so while we kind of take it for granted at times, it matters so very much.
Resiliency and lack of latency.
Yes,
right?
that.
And so you think about a lot of the just tragic situations in our society and in higher education with our colleagues at Brown, right? Like seconds matter, right? And waiting, 4 or 5 seconds for a camera, right, to get you real-time data could be that life or death, right? And so it's resiliency, but it's also, how quickly and how much can you reduce that latency to see things in real time, to respond, right? And that has life or death, unfortunate consequences.
Yeah, but predictive latency under network failures is one of our most challenging problems.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you know what that's going to be, and we'll keep delivering.
Right on. Thank you both.
Yeah.
It's been a delightful conversation. Thank you for your partnership, and here's to a great week.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.